Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we will be predicting match week 5 of the Premier League fixtures. Joining me this week is Gareth McGuinness. Gareth, how are you? You're normally in Ireland, but this time you're joining me from Budapest. How are you?
All good, Chris. On a wee break away from all the madness, all the football, all the coaching, all the podcasts. But of course, I've been roped on the one here. But I love the prediction shows like we do it on my podcast as well every week. So always good to get on and talk about a lot. Obviously, I'm a big Spurs fan, as you know, but talking about all the clubs as well. I'm a huge fan of Premier League football, so absolutely love it.
Well, I don't know why I've got you on this week because I'm trailing to the guests already. And I think you got the record score on the Premier League predictions last season. So I hope that doesn't happen again because I need the points. Now, remember, it is 5 points for a correct score, 2 points for a correct result. Gareth, let's get straight into it. The early kickoff on Saturday, West Ham United take on Chelsea at the London Stadium. Now, Chelsea have won 30 of their 56 Premier League meetings. They've only beaten Tottenham more often in the division, 35 times. A stat I really didn't want to read out. Both Premier League encounters last season were won by the home team. 3-1 for West Ham at the London Stadium and 5-0 for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. What have you made of West Ham and Chelsea this season so far, and your score prediction for this one?
Well, I think it's a terrific game to start the weekend. I mean, what a game to start a London derby. West Ham, obviously, are delighted with the new manager, the new style of play. But the results probably haven't reflected where they wanted to be this early because they've had quite a difficult start. They've played Villa and Man City at home. So difficult games to start the season, and they went away to Palace and won, which is a good result. And they had a good draw last week away at Fulham. So they've had 4 tough enough games there. And Chelsea, were kind of a lot of negativity around them at the start of the season, wasn't there, with a new manager and the owners and losing Pochettino. So I think it's going to be a great game to watch. Chelsea, I think I've been fortunate to get some of the results that they've had. I think the Wolves result, the 6-2, was, if you look at the expected goals, the stats, at half-time, Wolves probably should have been in front. It was 2-2, and then midweek he went on the overdrive and scored, I think he scored a hat-trick, or maybe even 4 goals in that game. So tough to call. But I think West Ham being at home, Chris, I have a feeling for West Ham today. I think Chelsea have been fortunate to get some of the points, and West Ham may be unfortunate. So I think it might balance out today. I'm going to go for a 2-1, West Ham 1.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think so far this season, you don't know what you're going to get with both teams. I'm going to go for a 1-1. Next up, Gareth, is Aston Villa take on Wolves, 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Aston Villa could welcome back defender Matty Cash, who has resumed training following a hamstring injury. Aston Villa will be trying to win consecutive Premier League games against Wolves for the first time since 2004. What have you made of Aston Villa and Wolves so far this season?
Villa have really surprised me. I thought maybe after the great season last year, they would come back to the pack a wee bit, but they've had an unbelievable start to the season. I mean, they beat West Ham away. We spoke about there now. They were very good at West Ham. They were very unlucky against Arsenal. I mean, they should have won that game. It wasn't like the Spurs-Arsenal game last week. I mean, Watkins missed 2 unbelievable chances. But he's had form last week. He scored 2 last week in that comeback against Everton. So I think Villa are very, very positive at the moment. Going really well. Great result in the Champions League. First game up away to Young Boys, plastic pitch. We were all those years ago. It was our first time in the Champions League, and it was difficult. We were 3-0 down, I believe, at one stage, but we managed to overturn the tie. But I think Villa are flying at the moment. Wolves are struggling. I'm a big fan of Gareth O'Neill. Me being a coach myself, I see a lot of Gareth O'Neill's qualities. I think he's a very, very good coach. He gets the best out of what he has. And when times are tough, he's seen at Bournemouth. When Scott Parker lost his job, he 9-0. He says this team's got no hope. He kept them up. Had a brilliant season at Wolves last year, and they've lost more players this year. So I think his back's against the wall probably more than it's ever been. But I would back Wolves to get better as the season goes on. But I think today it's going to be very difficult. Midlands derby, you think maybe Wolves might have that wee bit of incentive to up their game. But I think Villa are too hot at the minute, too many guns. I think Villa probably won 3-1.
Yeah, I'm also going for a Villa win, 2-0. What have you made of the job that Emery has done there, Gareth? It's exceptional, isn't it?
Fantastic. Brilliant coach. Brilliant at setting teams up. When they have to go on the attack, he's very good at that. And when they go up against a sort of team that's as good as them or better than them, he's very, very good at adapting, and that's something we our manager, I'm sure, will speak about it. That probably doesn't. He doesn't. I wouldn't say he doesn't have it because he's obviously a good coach, Ange, but he believes in one way of playing and he'll lose before he adapts. And Emery's a very good adapter. We've seen that result away at Arsenal last year when Villa were struggling a wee bit. Arsenal were flying. It was the only game Arsenal lost in 2024 in the league. And he went there and they'd done a job and they won 2-0. And I mean, let's be honest, they should have won. But Arsenal could have scored in the first half, but second half, Villa were worthy winners. He's very, very good at setting teams up. They nullify and play on their weaknesses, and I think Villa have it's hard to believe the job he's done with Villa. I think they've got a great manager there, and it'll be interesting to see now the Champions League started how can Villa cope with it. But based on the early season, Villa fans must be delighted with how they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Fulham take on Newcastle at Craven Cottage. Fulham head coach Marco Silva has reported no fresh injury concerns ahead of this game. Forward Carlos Vinicius is the only player missing for them. Newcastle will still be without Botman, Wilson, Lascelles, and Newcastle are checking on the fitness of Isak. Now, head-to-head, Newcastle are without a win in their past 8 Premier League meetings with Newcastle. 2 draws, 6 defeats, losing each of their last 5. How do you see this one going?
Do you know what, Chris? I was actually going through X yesterday and I seen that stat about Fulham's poor record against Newcastle. And it surprises me because Fulham's always a tough place to go. I can understand maybe Fulham aren't the best away from home, but I think at home you always go to Fulham expecting a tough game. But I remember Newcastle giving them a few hidings on there. But I'll be honest, Chris, if you watch the 4 games Newcastle have played, it's hard to believe they've got 10 points because they've been second best in every one of them. Southampton were better than them. Spurs were better than them. Bournemouth were disallowed a goal in the last minute, were better than them. And Wolves last week were battering them for 70 minutes and conceded 2 goals. 2 unbelievable. I mean, deflection, but the Harvey Barnes goal was special. But so I think if it continues like that, Newcastle are going to find them results leveling off because I don't think they can continue to play as poor and get them results. People will say it's a sign of a good team, but I remember Spurs going through a summer phase under Conte where they were getting results and people were thinking once they clicked they'll get better and they never did. So I'd worry for Newcastle based on what I've seen this season. I think that they could tend that once they lose that first game, it could be tough for them. And I'm gonna go against the stats. I think Fulham at home will be strong today, and I'd back Fulham. They won, so I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Fulham win.
I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Newcastle win. I'm gonna go with the stats.
Well, do you know what? Isak's if Isak's playing, that would be a huge. Fulham don't have a player like Isak, so if he isn't playing, I would really favour Fulham. But I think Newcastle with Isak, they can win games without playing poorly because he's such a good striker.
Next up, Leicester take on Everton. Everton have had a tough time this season so far under Sean Dyche. Now, head-to-head, Leicester have won just 1 of their past 7 Premier League meetings, a 2-1 away victory in November 2022. The others, 3 draws, 3 defeats. 16 of the 34 Premier League matches between Leicester and Everton have ended in a draw, the highest proportion for any fixture to have been played at least 30 times in the division. This has got a draw written all over it then, Gareth.
I think this is a massive game. Possibly I know we're going to speak about Man City Arsenal, but this is arguably as big for both teams where they're at. Leicester have dug out 2 draws against Spurs and Palace where they were second best, and they obviously lost the other 2. But Leicester, quality-wise, are suffering. They haven't got the ability to compete with most of the Premier League teams. But Everton, I mean, talk about Spursy moments. I mean, they've threw away two great opportunities against Bournemouth and then last week against Villa, 2-0 up, and they lose 3-2 2 weeks in the bounce.
Unbelievable.
I know there's an international break in there, but that kind of, you'd worry for them psychologically now. Sean Dyche teams are always very strong mentally, I think, and this year they've not nothing like a Sean Dyche team. They threw away games they should have got results on, and psychologically I'd worry that if they got in front again, there's going to be in the back of their head now that they could lose again, and I think that always creates nerves and panic. I think for Leicester this is a huge game. I mean, if you're looking at a relegation rival for Leicester, if they can get themselves 5 points ahead of Everton, they'll be thinking, right, that's one team we can finish above, and you start building from there. So it's a huge game. But I mean, you'd have to think Everton, if they can put their woes behind them, they're more than good enough. Player-wise, quality-wise, they beat Leicester. But I just don't think there's a lot of rumours about Sean Dyche, the new owners looking at them, about replacing them, and I don't think that's helping. So tough to call, but I'm going to just favour the home team, Leicester. I think that they might just be able to prey on Everton's weaknesses at the moment. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Leicester 1.
Wow. Sean Dyche will really be under pressure. I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw.
I don't think there'll be many goals in it. I think we're not far away.
Yeah. Next up, Liverpool take on Bournemouth at Anfield. Now, of course, Arne Slot got off to a fantastic start, and then Nuno Espirito Santo's Forest beat them last weekend. Bournemouth have never won at Anfield, losing on 9 of their 10 visits and only avoiding defeat in a 2-2 draw in April 2017. Liverpool have won 9 of the past 10 Premier League meetings. The exception being a 1-0 away defeat in March 2023. Gareth, how do you see this one going? What have you made of Arne Slot's start at Liverpool?
It's another fantastic game, and I think it's going to be a great watch, this one. It's a pity it's on the same time as the Spurs game, because I think this will be a really, really good watch for the neutral. Liverpool had a wee bump last week against Nuno, and I have to say, Nuno, that's his bread and butter. When he was at Wolves, he was very good at getting results against the top 6 teams and going away from home and nullifying teams and counter-attack. That's his bread and butter. It was never going to work at Spurs because of the expectation that you have to take the game to teams, but that's his bread and butter. He's a very good coach at a certain level, and I think he's proven that at Nottingham Forest. I think since he's come on there, he's done a great job. He had a great job at Wolves as well. But Liverpool I think they were the frailties. There's a lot of talk about them being they could be even better under Klopp than they were under Slot, because of the Slot's a bit more pragmatic. He's thinking about security at the back, because he knows he's got players like Salah and Diaz and Jota that can score goals, and that took a wee bit of a hit last week, but a fantastic result in the week against AC Milan. So I'm sure that'll be forgotten about. Bournemouth, I think I'm really impressed with Bournemouth. I think they're a fantastic team. I think they could have a really strong season. I think Areola's, he had that difficult start last season, but he's really improved. Bournemouth's style of play, how they play as a team. They've got really good wide players that can hurt Liverpool, and I think this will be close today. I really do think Bournemouth can go there and get a result. If they're secure at the back, they'll cause Liverpool problems in the transitions. So I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think Bournemouth could go there and get a result, Chris.
Wow. I'm going to go for a Liverpool 2-0 win. I think Liverpool will be too strong, but I do agree with you. I've been very, very impressed with Bournemouth so far this season. Next up, Gareth, is Southampton v Leicester. Of course, the 2 promoted sides. Ipswich have won 5 Premier League matches against Southampton, more than against any other opponent. Southampton v Ipswich, what have you made of these two?
Well, I mean, this is an huge game. I mean, you look everywhere they can. You think about the West Ham Chelsea start the weekend, huge game. Both teams have had different starts to the season, sort of, where the fans want to be higher. And then we speak about Leicester, Everton being huge, and this one's another huge game. Southampton, Ipswich, both teams come up from the Championship last year. Southampton have probably been a bit like ourselves in a couple of games where they probably feel they should have got more points than they did. I mean, the United game last week, they were dominating it, and then they get a penalty, miss it, and before you know it, they're 2-0 down, and they never really recovered after that. And that just shows you the gulf in class between the Championship and the Premier League. And I think Burnley at times last year are very similar to Southampton. The manager, Russell Martin's got a very distinct way of playing, and he's not going to change that. So they'll either have to sack him if it's going really wrong, or just back him and hope. That Company last year, Burnley, had a very, very poor first half of the season, but they almost clawed it back. I think they only got relegated in the second last game. So, they had a good fuss of it, and they backed them. So I'd like to see Southampton back Russell Martin as well. Ipswich, I mean, Kieran McKenna, local enough coach to myself from Northern Ireland, Enniskillen. So I'd love to see him do well. Obviously, I think he was at Spurs as a young coach, and then he went to Man United. So another coach that's probably exceeded expectations. First, from Division 1, League 1 to the Championship to the Premier League in a couple of years is unbelievable. And they have probably got a bit more streetwise in them. But it's a tough one to call, because I think Southampton's luck has to turn at some stage. So I'm going to go for a draw. I think Southampton will get off the mark with their first point. But Ipswich will be decent enough to make sure that they get a point as well. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, Chris.
I've written down exactly the same. 1-1 draw. Tottenham v Brentford. Of course, Gareth, it would probably be an understatement to say that Spurs need a win. We needed 3 points in the Premier League this afternoon. Wilson Odebear has been ruled out with a hamstring issue. Timo Werner is back. Basuma should return. Richarlison remains on the sidelines. Brentford have only won 3 of their 22 matches against Tottenham in all competitions. Their only away win at Spurs was a 3-1 win back in May 2023. The team scoring first has failed to win in any of the last 4 league meetings, 2 draws and 2 defeats. How do you see this one going?
There's no understanding. This is a huge game for Spurs. They have to get 3 points by any means. I mean, I think we're past the point now where if we batter Brentford and don't win, I don't think it'll wash anymore with the fans. I think they have to, even if Brentford are the better team and we won, that's needed more than us playing well. I think when you're going through a tough patch, you just have to really nullify and you really have to stick together and get results without playing your best football. And if you look at Wednesday night against Coventry, that's as low in confidence as I've seen us for a long, long time. Definitely since Ange has come in, I've never seen us that low in confidence. Even the basics that we were doing, the passing, the playing was poor. You were there, Chris, of course, and I really didn't see us getting out of that. I couldn't even see us getting the penalties, and obviously we turned it around. So that's hugely positive, and you can think that'll have to give them some sort of incentive today. Brentford without Ivan Toney, of course, as we found out in the press conference yesterday. Some journalists weren't sure, but Ivan Toney missing and Vissa as a huge player for them out for the next 2 months. So we've been fortunate. We're playing a Brentford team that would have had last year. You would have had Toney and Buemo and Vissa. You've only really got Buemo now of that sort of level. So I mean, it's a game Spurs you won, Chris. I'm actually going to an Irish bar out here in Budapest. I was talking to the owner last night. He says he's going to get the Spurs game on for me, so I'm going to see it. So that's fantastic. So, no, I do believe we'll win this game, but I just think it's going to be another one where we have to really be patient. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Spurs 1. I think it could be nervy, but I'm backing us to get a volley.
I know a lot of people will call me mad here, Gareth, but I'm going to go for a 2-0 Spurs win, a clean sheet. I think Wissa not playing is absolutely huge, and there's a comment saying exactly the same thing. I know Brentford are a great team, but I think that Spurs have got to turn it round at some point. And I think today,
the best player this season so far, and Muslin's going to be huge.
Yeah. Next up, Crystal Palace take on Manchester United in the late kickoff on Saturday. Head-to-head, Crystal Palace completed a league double over United for the first time last season. Crystal Palace's 4-0 win at Selhurst Park in May was their biggest margin of victory against United since 1972. The Red Devils are without a victory in any of their past 4 league visits to Selhurst Park, 2 draws and 2 defeats. Gareth, what have you made of Manchester United? What have you made of Crystal Palace so far this season?
I can only see this game going one way today, and it's a home one for Palace because I think Man United are really, really poor. I've not been impressed with them at all. I think the manager is clinging on for dear life. I think the first sign of things going wrong, Ruud van Nistelrooy's there, and he's on the end of the season, a bit like when Solskjaer come on. I think Van Nistelrooy's there as a backup option that it's very difficult to get the manager you want, and if you have to sack a manager at Christmas, for example, you kind of have to just go in and enter him, and I think he's the man that they have in place if anything does go wrong. And then they'll maybe reevaluate the situation. But I think Ten Hag knows that himself. I think that he believes that whilst he's putting on a brave fist, that it's not really working. I think they were very fortunate last week. I know they won 3-0. But I mean, Southampton were all over them. And if they had scored that penalty, it's a different game. And I think United are one of them teams at the minute. If you convert your chances, I'm not sure they have the mentality of the Man United teams under Ferguson to come back at times. So I think Palace today will be a really tough game for them. Palace are really impressed with them under the manager Oliver Glasner. I think he's been brilliant for them since he's come on. And was actually speaking to a couple of Crystal Palace fans on Thursday night during the Arsenal game. And they love it, and they're really confident of a win. And I'd have to agree with them. I just don't see, unless Palace are profligate in front of goal and United are fortunate, I can only see it going one way, and I'm going to go for Crystal Palace. They won 3-1.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Manchester United win, Gareth. And although Manchester United have been so inconsistent, particularly under Erik ten Hag, because of that 7-0 win against Barnsley in the Carabao Cup, I think that will give them huge confidence going into this game. So I'm going to go for
predictions are quite different this week. There's going to be somebody's going to get an absolute pattern here because I think they're near enough every game. We've only got one score the same, but I think a lot of them were different teams we've picked.
Yeah. Next up, Brighton take on Nottingham Forest. Of course, Brighton have had a good start in the Premier League. Forest have done well as well because, of course, Nuno Espirito Santo took them to Anfield, won their last weekend. How do you see this one going? This is Sunday afternoon fixture.
Brighton Forest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say Brighton's been terrific. Absolutely brilliant to watch. Whatever it is at Brighton, I mean, we should be looking at them a wee bit, because it doesn't matter if the manager seems to change. They seem to be able to tick off again. Yes, the managers are all somewhere in profile, but they're able to manage through it. It's almost like the club is the biggest thing there, and I think that's something that we've been struggling with. We were fighting over managers and styles of play, but Brighton seem to have a real identity about them. And I think they were brave in the transfer window this year. They spent a lot of money that they had saved over the last few seasons from selling so many players for big money. And if you look at it, Chris, a lot of those players that's left Brighton, I'm not sure they've had the same kind of careers. I know McAllister's done well at Liverpool and Ben White at Arsenal, but if you look at Bissouma, has he really delivered at Spurs? Hot and cold. Cucurella has not worked at Chelsea. And Caicedo hasn't worked at Chelsea. They've sold so many players, I think, that for big money that's probably not worth. And they've really invested that well this year. And I think Brighton are going to be a really, really dark horse for the European spot this year. Forest, we seen last week, very, very good on the counter-attack. And Nuno will have no problem going there and saying, Brighton, you have the ball, and we'll try and beat you in the transition. Because Forest, if you look at Liverpool last week, they were comfortable. They didn't look panicky. They didn't look. You think about us last week. Everything was a throw-in or a corner. We were panicking. Whereas Forest were able to give away the ball to Liverpool for loads of the game and be comfortable. And Nuno's teams are at their best when they're comfortable without the ball. So it will be difficult for Brighton, but I do think they have enough quality. They break through Forest, and the way they're playing at the moment, I just have to favour Brighton. But it wouldn't surprise me if Forest went there and got a result. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Brighton 1.
I'm going 2-0 Brighton. Now, Brighton have kept a clean sheet in each of their last 4 home league games against Forest, winning 3 and drawing 1. And the final game, Gareth, of the weekend is the big one. It is a huge one. Manchester City take on Arsenal. How do you see this one going?
You're going to call me biased, and a lot of fans are going to call me biased, but I can only see this game going one way too. I think Arsenal have been riding their luck for weeks upon weeks. Yes, they're good at the back, but you can only give away so many chances, and you can't rely on David Raya every week making Spider-Man saves. They should have lost against Villa. They should have lost against Atalanta. And let's be honest, they didn't deserve any more than a draw at Spurs. I mean, bar that set piece, it was an even game. So they're not attacking, they're not creating a whole pile of chances. And I think Man City's quality, you cannot, I mean, they're going to have to be unbelievable defensively, better than they have been. Yes, they're very good at the back, and Raya having another super game. Because going forward, other than the set pieces, I'm not sure what they have at the moment without Odegaard. They're not creating the chances. Saka's a wee bit out of form. Don't know if he's carrying an injury. Martinelli's lost everything that he had. For some reason, he's really fell off. So I'm struggling to see where they're going to hurt Man City at times. So I think if Man City breach them early, it could be a very comfortable day for Man City, and I'm going to go based on that narrative that Man City will score early. And I think Haaland's a different force to what Silva and Gabriel have come up against. So I'm going to go for a very comfortable Man City 1. I'm going to go for a 3-0 Man City 1.
3-0.
3-0.
Wow.
I think if they breach them early, Man City will be very comfortable. If it goes 0-0 on a long way, it ain't going to happen. But I think if Man City gets a goal in the first 10-15 minutes, they'll have an easy enough day.
See, again, Gareth, we're completely different. I think that it is going to be an extremely tight game. However, I do believe that Manchester City will win it. I'm going to go for a 1-0. Manchester City are unbeaten in 9 home league games against Arsenal since a 2-0 defeat in January 2015. So winning 7 and drawing 2. And Manchester City are looking to become the first team in English top flight history to win their opening 5 league matches in 5 seasons. Gareth, thank you so much. How far are you away from Ferencvaros? Because, of course, I'll be there in a couple of weeks.
Chris, I'm about 15 minutes away from it. The airport is about half an hour journey from my apartment here. So about halfway point, we passed Ferencvaros Stadium, and I have to say it looks fantastic. Really good area. I think the away fans out here are going to love it. Everyone's very friendly. People are enjoying themselves, but not going overboard. I think very friendly. They love everyone speaks English as well, so you're not going to have any trouble that way. The nightlife is going to be really, really enjoyable for the fans. You said you're going for 3 days. You're going to have 3 great nights, and hopefully Spurs can get a 1 out here. But I think it's a fantastic venue for the fans to come to, and I'm sure they're going to enjoy themselves.
Fantastic. Well, getting to see Ferran Sparrows, you can give us a scouting report on them and try and find a fan from our match preview as well before the match. That'd be great.
Well,
Gareth,
I'll try my best.
Enjoy your beer this afternoon. Let's hope the Spurs can get a win at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Brentford. Enjoy the rest of your break, and thank you so much. Where can people find you on social media? And are you still doing the match predictions yourself on your own YouTube channel?
Yeah, Chris. So you can find me at the 12th Man Podcast on YouTube. You should find a link to that on my Twitter somewhere. So it's basically Premier League discussion every week. Unfortunately, there's no one this week as I'm away, but next week we'll be back. Usually we focus on the big game of the week. So next week it'll actually be Man United Spurs. So we'll be doing we'll have a Spurs fan, a Man United fan on, and we'll be debating the ins and outs. I'm kind of like an anchor, so I'd have to try and be as impartial as possible. But really good over here because a lot of Irish fans obviously love the Premier League. It's a bread and butter show. And of course, you can usually find me on here on a Monday Night Football podcast with yourself, discussing the analysis. And very soon, Chris, we're going to have to get a studio and we're going to have to get the iPads out and the pens and the picks off because it's really good and really enjoyable. And I love getting into the nitty gritty of it as opposed to just talking about it, because it's good when you're talking about stuff and you can kind of back it up and give analysis. And I know a lot of the viewers have enjoyed it. And I think what's really good at the moment is the viewers are getting a lot of publicity and they're getting to have their say and they're getting to ask us questions. And I think it's fantastic. Really, really good. And interactive shows are what I love doing. And it's fantastic that you have me on doing that.
Absolutely. Well, always a fantastic guest. Always very welcome, Gareth. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend. And as I say, let's hope the Spurs can get a win this afternoon against Brentford. Come on, you Spurs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you soon.
Thanks very much.